Hello and welcome to this session on navigating your Copilot journey with confidence. I'm Eric Newell, the CEO of Stoneridge, and I will be taking you on a journey for this next half hour or so, talking to you about the ways you can get started taking advantage of the Copilot capability within your organization. So let's jump in and learn what those key steps are to be able to make Copilot a success within your organization. Because there's with any new technology, there are a few things you need to be watching out for to make sure that this is going to get off on the right foot. So for me, as I think about the what you need to do to get started, there's really 5 steps. So first, you need to identify how you're going to use it. So you're going to make an investment of time and licenses in getting started with Copilot. So before you get started, make sure you know how you're going to use it or how you might use it. So let's talk about what some of those use cases are and see if they're a good fit for your organization. Secondly, you want to make sure your data is secured. So one of the concerns about AI is my data going to get out there? Is it going to be used to train models in the future? So I want to explain a little bit about what to watch out for there and how to get yourself in a good position to know that you're going to be secure as you have this new data or have this new capability out there. Next, you want to pilot it. So you want to find a small group of users who are interested in trying out this technology and then be able to measure the impact of the technology on their productivity. Next, you want to train and upskill your users. So continually train them on what they can do with it, how they can get more and more out of it. And then finally, you want to find ways to integrate this capability into your business so that you know that you are able to take advantage of it and this investment of time and energy is going to be worthwhile. And then I'll throw in one bonus thing is that when you're done with all of those things, you got to want to measure how you're doing, what your usage is, and then just iterate, try new stuff. This technology continues to get better day after day. So there are different ways you might be able to take advantage of it. So don't be afraid to try that out. So hopefully you saw the keynote this morning and I gave my introduction there, but I'm Eric Newell, the CEO and co-founder of Stoneridge Software. So prior to starting the Stoneridge, I spent 13 years at Microsoft, all in the business application space. And I'm also the author of a book called Mastering Microsoft Dynamics 365 Implementations. So the key resource on how to go through and do an implementation of a Microsoft Dynamics technology in the ERP or CRM space, which you can see if I can point well back there. So we're happy to share that book with you as well if you're interested. It's a great companion as you go through an implementation to know you're on the right track. All right, so let's jump into some of the use cases. I'll share some of the ways that I'm using Copilot today too. So if you think about the AI-powered tools within Microsoft's ecosystem today, you'll see AI in all sorts of different technologies. So you'll see it in Power Automate and Power Apps and Business Central and all of these technologies as well. But the specifically built for AI tools are Copilot for Microsoft 365. So this is really infusing AI capability into the Word and Outlook and Teams and capability that you use every day. Then you've got purpose-built agents, which will be part of Copilot Studio, which will be bots or something that you use to extend your capability or to answer questions based on large data sets. And we'll talk about a few examples of that at the end here. And then autonomous agents are a newer concept that they've been talking about for these last few months. And so these are agents that are doing work on your behalf without you having to actually go out and engage them. So they start based on some kind of trigger. And Microsoft recently released 10 different autonomous agents, like a financial reconciliation agent or a time and expense agent or a customer knowledge management agent. So those are tools that are looking at your data sets and able to provide information or take actions based on other triggering events that you have. And then for those of you who want to take advantage of the AI capability into developing a product that you have or developing customization specifically for your business, there's Azure AI Foundry, which is the AI development tool that you can use to get more and more out of this technology as well. So these are the tools that are at your disposal. Now let's talk about how you go about using them. So I certainly recommend, if you're starting out on the Copilot journey, to start with Microsoft 360 or Copilot for Microsoft 365. So here are a few of the tools that I use every day inside of Copilot for Microsoft 365. So probably the biggest one that we use is Teams meetings summaries, and recording Teams meetings and then having that summarized or having the ability to follow Teams meetings. Certainly a game changer for, I'm sure, many of you, but certainly I feel like I need to be in multiple places at once and can't be. But with these Teams meeting summaries now, I feel like I can be caught up on meetings that I don't even attend. Internal search. So using the Copilot search within your internal documents is a game changer in terms of the results that you're going to get back from the searches that you do. And then that similar concept applies to email as well too. And after hearing about this, I don't think you're ever going to do the Outlook search anymore once you see the power of Copilot search. And then automating some calendar and email tasks too. Once you get the flow of this, you can really start to take advantage of that. And then finally, you can use this tool to create PowerPoints. And it's amazing how fast you can create really professional looking PowerPoints with the information that you give it based on that prompt. So let's talk a little bit about these. So Teams meeting recaps, probably the one we use the most at Stone Ridge. So just about every meeting that we do now, we record. And those meetings now give us the ability, we've had the ability for a few years to go back and watch the recording. But now you can actually jump in and find out exactly what part of the meeting you want to watch. So at the bottom, you can see who spoke during this forecast meeting that we had. And you can jump in and say, hey, I know Eric was talking about this at some point in the middle of the meeting. I just want to hear what he had to say about that. Well, you can jump right to it because you can see where I was talking in that meeting. And then over on the right, you have a recap of the 6 key points that we talked about in that meeting. So each of the points have been summarized. So you can, if you weren't able to attend the meeting, like one of our members of our leadership team wasn't able to attend the meeting, well, she can go in and read that summary and be caught up on what happened in that meeting. And then there's another button over there too with a transcript. So she could look at the entire transcript of the meeting, or she can even search inside the meeting. So tell me the times where we talked about our plan to attract more revenue. She could type a search for that and find the times within the meeting to be able to see when that was discussed. And then one of the other great things you can do is, if you can't attend a meeting because you're at a conference or whatever it might be, you can actually choose to follow a meeting. And when you choose to follow a meeting, you will get this recap emailed to you after the meeting. So you didn't even have to go into Teams and see what's happening. You can actually see a summary of what happened in a meeting that you weren't even attending. And then once you see that recap, you can go, oh, you know what? I need to dig into this particular point, or I want to listen to what they said at 17 minutes into the meeting because I think that might be useful for us. So that's the power of Teams meetings. Again, if you haven't used this yet, it's very, very valuable. Saves a ton of time, especially if you are in a lot of different meetings. You now have information about it. If there were any documents shared in the meeting, you would have a link to that document that was used in the meeting as well too. So tons of great value here. Now moving on to search. So if you've deployed Copilot for Microsoft 365 in your environment, and you go to the Copilot button, which I now have on my taskbar, or you click Copilot inside of any of the Microsoft 365 tools like Outlook or PowerPoint or whatever, you can see that you have a work and a web. So I highlighted that in the red circle there where you can see work. And what that does now is that actually searches your internal documents. So that searches everything that you specifically have access to. So that could be work that a colleague is doing that's been shared with you. It can search that. It can search the things that are on your OneDrive or things you've been working on. It can search files that have been put into your SharePoint or Teams site as well too. So anything you type in there, it's going to look internally in your system. And then the best thing about that work search too is anything you put in that prompt is not going to be used. That's not going back to the engine that is, refining the generative AI kind of capability. So you're not going to lose something or have something kind of any breach of confidentiality based on what you type in there. So you can type any number of different things in there. One of the things I've been doing is at the end of the day, just asking, what do I have on tap for the next day? And I'll ask it, what is my schedule for tomorrow, not including anything where I'm marked as free or tentative. So like, what are the things that I know I need to be there for? And it'll give you a summary of those things and a link to the meetings. And if you ask it to as well too, you can even ask, like, what have we recently talked about in those meetings? Can I get an update or summary of a previous meeting that we had? Or are there files that I recently shared with this person that I should review before, or they shared with me that I should review before that meeting? It will pop all that stuff up for you. So it's a great way to get ready to move into your day, knowing that you're prepared and you're ready to go. And then this email search. So I am not using the Outlook search anymore. I am just using Copilot to do my searches. You get far better results if you do it that way. So for those of you who've been around Stoneridge before, we have in marketing both a Bree Williams and a Britt Williams. And so when I search for, I know I had the PowerPoint template for this presentation that I'm giving came to me from Bree Williams. But when I search in Outlook, I often get results that come from both Bree and Britt because their names are so close. So my prompt I used was, please send me an email from Bree Williams, not Britt Williams, where I had a PowerPoint attached. So it actually gave me 8 emails that I've received from her in the past year where she'd attached a document. And then if you see those little boxes at the end of each, in number 1, it shows me the one that I was looking for. And there's a little box at the end, and that actually takes you to the email. So that's how I found the attachment for this PowerPoint, is I clicked on that button and it propped up the email, and there was the PowerPoint attachment that I needed to be able to create this slide. So again, you can get pointed right to the email or to the content that you want to use using this tool. So highly recommend it. It's in the right side of Outlook. If you have Copilot for 365 turned on, at the far right side, you'll see a Copilot icon. Search using that. Don't use the search tool at the top of Outlook anymore. And then another key thing that you can do is you can create an on-brand PowerPoint. So you can easily create PowerPoints with Copilot, but it's a little bit tricky to create an on-brand PowerPoint. So I wanted to explain that real quick. So what you need to do is you actually need to save a template of your PowerPoint template in the template form, so .potx form. And once you have that on your hard drive, all you have to do is then open that up, and in the top left-hand corner, there'll be a Copilot icon, and just tell it what you want it to create a document for. So I wanted it to come up with the use cases for Microsoft Copilot. So I said, create the top 10 use cases, and it gave me a summary of what it was going to do. I clicked generate. It actually created a 43-page slide deck with images about all of these 10 different ways that you could use Copilot. So again, this happened all in 30 seconds, 45 seconds maybe. So I was able to create an on-brand Stoneridge PowerPoint with a ton of great information that looks professional that I can use in 45 seconds. Now, I think what it created for me was good. It was relatively generic. Like, I would have taken some time to work on this if I were actually presenting it. But I could have been done with putting this presentation together in probably a half hour, where it would have taken me 6 to 8 hours otherwise to do this. So again, just remember, Copilot is called Copilot for a reason. It's your partner. It's there to help you. You're still the pilot. You're still in charge. So make sure that you remember that as you put together content. So these are ways that I'm using Copilot for M365, which is where I suggest you start your Copilot journey. So now let's talk about making sure you have the right access to be able to use these tools appropriately. So when we help clients get started with Copilot, we go through this security checklist. And the security checklist just makes sure that you have the right security environment in place to be successful with Copilot. So one of the dangers that everyone understands and hears about AI is, is my confidential information going to get out? Is that going to be used to inform the engine? And it isn't. Use the work capability, and that information is not going to be able to get out there. But we don't know as we go in to help a new client whether or not their access is set up in a way that that's going to be restrictive. Like, we don't know if you'll be able to see payroll records or not, because if somebody puts a file out on a hard drive that says everyone's payroll and everyone has access to it, then Copilot would be able to find it. So I think that's the fear that a lot of people have, is those kind of things will be out there. So as we go through the security checklist, we look at a number of different things to just make sure that you are in a good spot to be able to use this. First is we look at your conditional access capabilities and make sure that we've got settings optimized for multi-factor authentication and that risky sign-ins are not going to have access to this kind of information. We want to make sure that multi-factor authentication is turned on. So and multi-factor authentication, like 99.9% more secure than just having passwords alone. So I'm sure you're all seeing that in a lot of different tools that you're using in today's world where you need multi-factor authentication. We want to make sure it's turned on so that you don't have anybody use a phishing attack to get into your system and start to search in there. We want to make sure you have auditing turned on, just so that if you did find someone who's found something that they shouldn't have, you can go back and figure out who it was, what access do they have, those types of things. But then the last one is really a key one, looking at the scope of data access that you have. So we like to look at what permissions you have, who has permission to what, what information is shared more broadly, what's shared out to everyone. That's the bigger thing that we're looking for, is to understand who might have access to all this data. We want to try to lock that down as much as possible. There are things you can turn on, like Microsoft Purview, where you've got unrestricted and confidential and restricted settings for each document. That's a best practice. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you do want to look at what the data access parameters are and group setups are before you go ahead and turn on Copilot. Okay, so you've determined how you're going to use it. You've got your security in a good place. Now it's time to pilot it. So when we go through this with clients, we take them through what we call Copilot Flight School. So what we recommend is starting with 10 or so champions who will help lead the adoption of Copilot for M365. So I strongly recommend that you don't just turn on Copilot for everybody in the organization, say, hey, go for it. Go through the process of determining your use cases, make sure your security is right, then turn it on for about 10 or so users. And you want those users to be people who are excited about using Copilot. So make sure they're people who have a plan on wanting to use it and they're willing to go through some training on it. So as we go through this process, we'll do a kickoff meeting, and then we'll train them on it. And then we'll check in with how they're doing, and then we'll give them a report on how they're doing. Then we'll check in with them to make sure they're using it well. We'll check in with the executives to make sure that they're doing well, and then we'll start to build a plan for how you would roll this out to more people within your organization. But I do recommend that you start with a pilot group. That's really what we did at Stoneridge. We have almost 170 people with Copilot licenses. We didn't just give it out to everyone. We basically started with a pilot group, and then anyone who raised their hands to want to use it, we gave them access to it. And so if someone hasn't yet raised their hand to try it out, we haven't given them access, but we've given access to over half of our company now. All right, so next is making sure that the users have the appropriate training to be able to take advantage of it. There is a ton of training out there online, but here are a few good places to start. So We have recorded this Copilot M365 flight plan. So this is a good place to get started. So just go out to Stoneridge Software or search out Stoneridge Software Copilot, and you'll get to this page. And it'll take you through a training course for your business. And so Scott and I recorded some content here around how to get started. There's a link to a lot of videos that we've done over time as well too. And that's a great way to get your team going on it. And then if you want to look at some specific resources that I recommend, so Microsoft Learn has a Getting Started with Copilot badge, so a set of videos that you can watch and go through, and then you can get your introduction to Copilot badge there. So I think that's a good place to start. If you're an administrator, check out this link with Microsoft documentation. Again, you can search for Copilot documentation on Microsoft's Learn site, and you'll get this page as well too. But that tells you a little bit about how it works and how to set it up. And then just the best way to learn it is to try it out. So once you get in there and you start using it, you're going to start to see what works well and what doesn't work. So watch some videos, but jump in and try it out. And then at our last leadership summit we did last fall, we had a Microsoft solution architect come. And what she said is spend 11 minutes per day trying out the Copilot capability, or try 11 different things in a particular day. Don't make it take up all of your day, but spend a few minutes every day trying to figure out how you can use it. And once you get in the habit of that, you'll really start to see how your productivity can pick up. And you'll get much better at prompting. Like, learning how to ask the right question is certainly an art. It takes a little time to do. And then one of the things I've recently learned is you can do something, and then you can ask it to ask you clarifying questions, and you get even better results if you do that kind of thing. Well, it's not something you learn the first time you try it out. So make sure you dedicate some time to learning it and getting in there and seeing what you can do. All right, now you're trained and ready to go. Now it's time to integrate it into your business. So there's so many different ways that you can use this Copilot capability. We talked about Teams meetings. There's going to be a new feature where you can actually save that to CRM. So you can save meeting summaries into your CRM timeline. So anybody who's interested in that account can now see what you talked about in the meeting that you have. That's a great thing. We mentioned internal searches. The translation capability in Copilot is crazy good. So we had a meeting with folks down in Costa Rica where we had one of our Spanish speakers speaking to them, and our English only speaking salesperson was able to follow along in the entire conversation because it was constantly translating everything that was said into English real time. So if you work across different countries with different languages, the translation content is so much better than it ever was. We've got some projects that we're kicking off with clients now to be able to search through large sources of text that they've had and be able to find answers from that. That's a great use for generative AI. Another great use is do research. Research on your prospects and your competition. If you want to have it look through public 10Q forums and see what's been going on with people in the industry that you might be targeting, for example. You can use it in marketing to build marketing segments and journeys. Tell it what you want to do, and it will go ahead and do those kind of things. You can very quickly create knowledge base articles as well, too. So if you want to build out your knowledge base article, which can be a great source of content for agents in the future, you can do that. And then a couple things we're doing internally as a help desk agent. So now we have an agent that can help us answer basic help desk questions. So when we have a portal, we can put those questions in and get an answer. And then we also are developing an HR bot as well, too. So if you have questions about benefits, so your questions about maternal leave or any of those types of things, you can ask questions of the HR bot and get answers there without having to debug a person to get an answer. So those are all things that you can start to roll out across your organization. And then just finally, I want to reiterate, keep trying new things. So there are reports that we can give you as part of the flight school so you can see who's using it and how much they're using it. But this technology keeps evolving and keeps getting better all the time. So iterate it on different ways you can use it. I will warn you that some might disappoint you. I've had things where I've had to try it a few different ways before I got the results that I want. This technology is changing and adapting, and that's just part of the process to make this really a useful tool in the future. And then, check out those videos, check out our YouTube page to see more about what we've shared, and so you learn more and tips and tricks on how to use it. And then finally, reach out to learn more and connect. So we have an offering, our flight school offering, that will help you get started if you want to roll this out. If you want to roll it out on your own, that's great too. Just recommend you follow the steps that I outlined here in this session to make sure that it's going to be a good experience for you. We did a series on the 12 days of Copilot, and we've been doing quite a bit on Confab as well. So those are out on our YouTube page, and you can catch our live Confab every other Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Time as well, too, where you can ask questions of Scott and his guests on whatever you want to know about. So thank you for attending this session. Thank you for being a client of us here at Stoneridge, and thank you for attending Stoneridge Connect, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.